thank you for agreeing to be interviewed for Beyond the Binary Radio. And I'm wondering if you can start with telling the audience about yourself, who you are, what you're doing, and I think more pointedly, your connection to what I'm considering trans-cultural production, so just producing culture in some way.
Well, my name is Sarah Mitchell. You can call me Sarah or Mitch or Mitchell. I'm a junior at SIU. I'm studying cinema and journalism. I've only been making films for like less than a year, but I'm going to make a lot more. I'm really excited about doing that. And it just makes sense for me to make things that deal with gender, I guess, because I think about gender a lot, obviously. Just anything to do with gender is something I'm probably interested in working on and exploring, I guess. And I like writing too.
I wonder, you said that you think about gender a lot. Obviously was the word you used.
Yeah.
Why obviously?
Well, gender is a big part of identity, I guess, and it's a big part of my identity because it's something that changes so much and has changed so much recently, I guess. It's just so many aspects of gender identity, gender expression have all just changed really drastically in the past couple of years for me.
As a filmmaker, as an artist in general, well, let me back up actually. In terms of identity, do you mind sharing where you might sit on some sort of gender spectrum of the vast identities out there? Where would you maybe locate yourself right now?
I identify as genderqueer, gender neutral. It changes from day to day, I guess. Sometimes I feel like a boy, sometimes I feel like a girl, sometimes I feel like both and neither, and sometimes I feel like a Martian. So it totally changes, but somewhere in that very vast spectrum.
I love the idea of feeling like a Martian. Would you consider Martian a gender expression of sorts, or an experience perhaps too?
I think now and then, yeah, definitely. Just feeling like, I want to make a zine about feeling like an alien and also feeling alienated, I guess, but also like how that can be cool and good sometimes based on where you are. I think it's a gender thing, space gender, space boy.
Last week we had a friend of ours that we interviewed, and her name is Austin, and she created a zine that's been circulating around, and right now I'm helping her try to put it into PDF format so we can find a web presence as well. And in this, she really tracks kind of her upbringing, transitioning in a more traditional sense, male to female, and then over time detransitioning, and how problematic that word perhaps detransition is. And I'm wondering if, and now this is just us speaking about gender, because if you like to think about gender, as do Aria and I both, let's talk about gender. And I'm wondering if you can give some words on, or thoughts on detransition, or gender as an ongoing process.
Gender is definitely an ongoing process, I think. And I haven't thought too much about transitioning versus detransitioning and whether or not that's even really a binary. And but I do think that gender can evolve so much in different ways, and evolving doesn't necessarily have to be going toward one destination. It can be evolving in 100 other destinations.
Do you think that your desire to become and be as you are a filmmaker, does that somehow mirror your experience with gender as well? And I'm thinking here about gender as a process, filmmaking as a process, as a, for lack of a better word, a snapshot in time, right? When you can watch the progression of someone's work, or whatnot. Do you think that those might speak to each other?
I think that's a really cool concept, yeah. And I think like being 20 years old kind of, I don't know, affects that in some way too, just because any kind of identity that I am going to develop is, no, that's not necessarily true, but I guess like, it's just a time for developing identities, you know? I mean, I think all of your life is, but especially when you're 20.
Now, you did make a short film called They. I have a few questions about that. First, can you share with us what the motivating factor for the film was? What's the story, the backstory? Where does it come from?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to make a film about what it feels like to be a boy wearing a dress, I guess. That was one of the things that started to inform my gender journey, I suppose, was realizing that, like, sometimes when I'm wearing clothes that are stereotypically feminine, I just feel like a boy wearing a dress, and I feel like I'm sort of like, and that can be good, obviously, that can be like super fun and hot, but it can also be like very like confusing and sort of feel like a costume. And so I wanted to talk about that. And my brother and I played the same character. His name's Grant. He's 16. He's the coolest person I know. So it starts off with this character, Emily, and Emily is getting dressed for this wedding. But it's my brother, and you hear a voiceover. It's supposed to kind of be like in the character's head of Emily's mom saying things like, "Don't you think you're a little too old to be complaining about wearing a dress?" And like, "Don't you want to look nice for your sister's wedding? Everyone's going to think, don't you want everyone to think the sister of the bride is such a pretty girl?" And then when Emily steps out of the bathroom, it's not my brother in the dress anymore, it's me. And so then I like go up to my mom, and my mom's like, "Oh, like, you look so pretty, Emily." And then, so I don't know, it's supposed to kind of show, like, I guess all the times that Emily is looking in the mirror, it's my brother. And then when other people are looking at Emily, it's me. And I didn't want to use myself in the movie for some reason. I wanted to create a new character for it, because I never really had that exact experience with my parents. My parents have always been pretty cool about me wearing whatever clothes I want to do and that kind of thing. But, I mean, it just kind of represents, like, how you look at yourself versus how other people look at you, and this kind of like fear that I'm never ever going to present in the ways that I want, because the way that I want to present changes so much from minute to minute that it's difficult to kind of settle on one thing, at least at this point in my life.
I think that it speaks to multiple gender expressions and experiences, no matter how true it is. It's still true to the extent that I think that it speaks to a lot of folks out there. I'm wondering if there's something to be said I tend to ask everyone who engages in some sort of art practice what your thought is as a gender variant, or what I've lately been saying, gender anormative, whatever that means. How a gender anormative individual like yourself uses art, or differently said, what's the importance of art to your understanding and working through gender?
I guess art has like always been a part of my life, and like I think seeing other kind of gender art is like, you know, I've read a lot of zines specifically about gender that kind of informed my knowledge about gender anormativities, and so I guess like exposing myself to those kinds of things and then making my own from there like has kind of helped me like process different feelings about that kind of thing, and it also helps me to be more open about it with people. Like I showed this at a local festival last April to a lot of people that I knew, and I think that it kind of, I don't know, it helps me kind of like open a dialogue about myself with other people sometimes, and because I'm just like really chronically bad at coming out to people. I always have been about anything in my life. So it helps me be more open about that too.
What do you mean by when you say chronically, like you struggle with being or coming out or being out? What do you mean by that? Can you say more on that?
I just have never really liked coming out, revealing things more. Like I'm totally cool with being open about my identities with most people, but it's the reveal that I have the trouble with. The like, how do I put this? Like, you've known me forever, and I have this big thing to tell you. Like, I usually try to just skirt it and just come out in other ways without really doing it, you know?
I think a film is a really great way to kind of express that, yeah.
Yeah.
So that difficulty in coming out is about is part of it, for those of us who have gender experiences and even sexual identity types of experiences that are beyond the binary, for lack of a better word, again, is part of the difficulty a lack of language that we can share with outsiders? Yeah. Do you think that could be part of why the coming out can be difficult for you? Definitely.
That's definitely a big part of it. There's just like, I know that for a lot of the people in my life, like probably most of them, I'm like their first and currently only like experience with some type of gender anormativity, and it's very difficult and just stressful to have to be the person that explains that kind of thing, you know? And there is a lack of language and like just a lack of like preferred identity, like label, I guess. It's hard to just explain that I'm like just so many different things and also like nothing at once, that it's difficult to find good words that people can just pick up on right away, you know?
Sure. Well, that tends to be kind of the struggle behind the T word trans, that while I utilize that term for myself, I largely identify as genderqueer. But I use the T because that's the more common kind of nomenclature. So you say trans, even if someone doesn't get it, they kind of know. But then comes the onslaught of questions of, well, how were you born? Are you going to go, quote, all the way? And it kind of pigeonholes, and it creates, like the box becomes created around you in ways that are very difficult.
Yeah, I definitely identify with that. It's good because it's like words like trans and queer, they are kind of words that people can, like you said, they can pick up on, and it's kind of like an umbrella sort of, and it's kind of like, okay, now I don't have to really explain it, but then people do start asking questions and they get confused.
And I think that's kind of the gorgeousness of this short film Day, is it kind of gets us to a space of creating a different type of language, which is through art, which for me I think is the importance of having art around us, whether it's spreading very explicit messages like on posters or through zines, but also through imagery that kind of tries to convey a non-traditional kind of experience as well. I'm wondering, can you speak a little bit about your experience in terms of support and or resistance from at the institutional level, like here at school, and then also institutionally as maybe religious experiences, familial relationships, all of this? I wonder if you can speak a little bit about that around your gender work.
Yeah. Well, I've never shown that film to my parents, even though my brother and I were both in it, and they know that he was in it, and they know that I made a film. They never, for some reason, asked questions about that, which I'm suddenly wondering why. But
because they know.
They know. They found out. But I consulted my brother about whether or not I should show my parents, and I don't think that my brother really is positive that the film is a response or a reaction to my sort of like gender identity, but I think that he can guess that it is. But he's a sweet kid, and I asked him like if he thought that I should show my parents, and he was like, probably not, just because I think it's the kind of thing that my mom would be like, well, I never did that, and I just don't want to have that conversation with her about like how it's supposed to be like a narrative, not like necessarily my narrative with her, maybe with other people, but not with her. So yeah, I haven't talked to my parents about that kind of thing that much. Religion's never been a part of my life, so I consider that lucky in some ways that I don't have to deal with any kind of pressure from that. And then in terms of like the university, I've never really had any issues. I've had a lot of support from a lot of the professors that are connected with Synesthesia, which is the feminist media collective at SIU. Yeah, I've had nothing but good experiences with the professors here. We have a lot of really cool open-minded cinema professors.
I'm wondering if you can share with our audience who you consider your gender variant heroes, sheroes. I hate zeros, but that tends to be the other one. But
yeah.
Folks that you look up to in some way. Share with us. Who do you look up to?
Wow, let's see. I took this Gender Outlaws class that we have at SIU last semester. That was a really good experience. We read a book by Matilda Sycamore, and that really, Nobody Passes, which I thought was such a fascinating concept. And, yeah, I really liked that whole book. Everyone that wrote for that book, really, I found myself, on every page being like, right? I know, right? And so that was a really good feeling. I like Kate Bornstein a lot, of course. And then just some of my, friends, I guess. Of course, that's, a sense of community is, sometimes the best hero and, or shiro. Yeah, just, some of my close friends who work with like gender variant issues in their art really helped affect like the way that I can perceive like just like it kind of gives you the confidence to actually like make stuff, you know, because you're like, oh, if my friends can do it, I could do it.
Absolutely. And that means you're doing it too. I mean, you're letting other people know it's okay. And sometimes I think that in all kinds of marginal spaces, that's precisely what we need, is to see that someone else is doing it, so that it can, the ripple effect to me is fascinating. Along the same lines, can you maybe share with our audience, for those who sometimes lack various types of channels of access to productions, music, musicians, and or films that you could recommend that maybe you really enjoy or found solace in? They don't have to be, of course, trans or genderqueer focused, but maybe some way there has been some message that resonates similarly for you.
I find a lot of things through Tumblr and through the Queer Zine Archive, and both of those websites help me like become more connected with trans communities, no matter where I am, which is really helpful.
Is there anything that you'd like to leave for the audience?
Well, making films is really easy. Like, I've always kind of like, ever since I came here, I became friends with a lot of cinema students, and never just, at first had no interest in it, but then sort of developed interest in it over time, and then just wasn't like, well, I'm never going to do that. But then I don't know, I found the confidence to do it, and it was like super easy. So if anyone's like thinking about making a film, they should totally just do it. And it doesn't matter like what equipment they have. Use like your phone or your friend's phone, or you could write a movie. Like, I don't know, it's really easy and it's really fun. So I'm really happy that I found it as something, as like an outlet. And the more that I do it, the more ideas I get for other movies that I want to make, which is really cool. So yeah, you should make a movie.
I love that advice. I think it's very important, because that's, spot on. Just do it. Do you feel that the importance of film, the way that you're kind of describing it here, it's not really a question. It sounds like the importance of film isn't about the success, because there tends to be that I'll never make it. Right? But it's not about that, particularly when we talk about, I think, cultural production. This is about creating a space for voice and creating community. And I think that's what you're getting into here. Because when you say it's easy, I think some people go, no, it's not, I'll never make it. But that's not supposed to be the point of, I think, art, filmmaking, any type of art as well. It's about creating, I think, connection with people, like a connection that we have here, a connection with the viewers that watch this secretly at home, perhaps, and they have nowhere else to turn but perhaps to say, oh, that's my experience, now I can never talk about it for another year. But it's important to have that little connection, I think. Well, thanks for the interview.
Absolutely.